The tape was found in a box no one had opened for 22 years. Not in a police station, not in an evidence locker, not in the basement of some abandoned house. It was sitting on a metal shelf inside the Ashford County Courthouse archive, a place that smelled like dust, old paper, and decisions no one wanted to revisit. The box was marked for disposal, water damage, expired records. No historical value. That was what the label said, but court clerk Megan Ellis had learned something during her 11 years in that building. Old records were never just paper. Sometimes they were the last place the truth had been allowed to survive. The box was nearly falling apart when she lifted it. Inside were motions, transcripts, yellowed envelopes, and one black cassette tape. No official stamp, no case number, only 3 handwritten words. Do not play. Megan almost put it back. She was not a detective. She was not a lawyer. She was a court clerk with 2 hours left in her shift, and a supervisor who kept reminding everyone that the archive room needed to be cleared before Monday. But the tape bothered her, not because of the warning, because of the handwriting. She had seen it before, on old files, on judges' notes, on sealed orders from the late Judge Warren Pike. Pike had been a legend in Ashford County. Strict, quiet, respected, the kind of man people spoke about with careful voices even years after his death. Megan turned the cassette over. On the other side, someone had written a date, October the 17th, 2004. That date meant nothing to her at first. Then she found the folder underneath it. State v. Daniel Reed. And suddenly the archive room felt colder. Daniel Reed was the kind of name everyone in Ashford County knew, even if they pretended they did not. 22 years earlier, he had been convicted in the disappearance of Anna Whitaker. Anna was 26, a night shift nurse, quiet, reliable. The kind of person neighbors described with the same sad sentence. She would never just leave. Her car was found behind the courthouse. Her purse was still inside. Daniel Reed worked maintenance in the same building. He knew the back entrances, the camera blind spots, and the old service hallway that led to the parking lot. The case had seemed simple, too simple. A witness said she saw Daniel arguing with Anna that night. The jury believed her. Daniel went to prison. Anna was never found. And Ashford County closed the file like closing it made the questions disappear. Megan carried the tape upstairs to the records office. There was an old cassette player in the supply cabinet, mostly used as a joke now. Someone had labeled it ancient technology. Megan set it on her desk. For almost a full minute, she only stared at the tape. She knew the rules. Unmarked evidence was not supposed to be played. Old court materials were not supposed to be handled outside procedure. But the tape was not listed in the inventory. It was not supposed to exist at all. Finally, she pressed play. At first, there was only static. Then a chair moved, a man coughed, and Judge Warren Pike's voice came through the speaker. This is an informal interview regarding State v. Daniel Reed. Megan leaned closer. Then a woman's voice answered. I already told them. They wrote it down wrong. Megan stopped breathing for a second. The woman on the tape sounded nervous, but not confused. Her voice was sharp, clear, angry in the way people get when they have repeated the truth too many times, and no one has listened. Judge Pike asked her to say her name. Marla Voss. Megan knew that name. Everyone who had ever read the Reed case knew it. Marla Voss was the witness. She was the woman who told police she saw Daniel Reed arguing with Anna Whitaker behind the courthouse. Her testimony had placed Daniel near Anna on the night she disappeared. Without Marla, the case had been weak. With her, it became almost certain. But on the tape, Marla said something very different. I didn't say it was Daniel. There was a long pause. Then Judge Pike said, then who did you see? Marla whispered, I saw a judge. Megan played that part for times. I saw a judge. The words did not get easier to hear. On the official transcript, Marla had never said that. At trial, she testified that she saw Daniel Reed in the parking lot around 11:40 p.m. She said he was upset. She said Anna looked scared. She said she was sure it was him, but the tape suggested something else had happened before trial. Something hidden, something changed. Megan pulled the old Reed file and compared the dates. The tape was recorded 3 days before jury selection. There was no mention of it in the docket. No motion, no disclosure, no sealed hearing, nothing. It was as if Marla Voss had walked into the courthouse, told a judge she had been misquoted, and then that moment had vanished. Except it had not vanished. It had been waiting in a box. The next morning, Megan called the only person she trusted with old cases. Retired investigator Paul Mercer. He had worked for the public defender's office back then, and had spent half his life saying Daniel Reed did not get a fair trial. Most people called him obsessed. Megan called him careful. When he arrived at the courthouse, he listened to the tape without interrupting once. His face did not change when Marla spoke, but his hands tightened on the edge of the desk. When the tape ended, he asked Megan where she found it. she told him. Then he said, "This should have changed everything." Megan asked, "Why didn't it?" Paul looked toward the courthouse hallway, the same hallway Judge Pike had walked for 30 years. Because if Marla was telling the truth, then Daniel Reed was not the only man protected by that trial. Paul still had a copy of his old notes. He kept them in banker's boxes in his garage, sorted by year, case, and regret. The Anna Whitaker file was thicker than Megan expected. Photos of the courthouse, maps of the service hallway, interview lists, security logs, and one page with a name circled in red. Judge Robert Kellen, not Warren Pike. Robert Kellen. In 2004, Kellen was not yet a judge. He was an assistant county prosecutor, young, ambitious, known for winning difficult cases and smiling for every newspaper camera after the verdict. He later became one of the most powerful judges in the county. Paul said Kellen had handled the Reed prosecution. He also said Anna Whitaker had filed a complaint against someone at the courthouse 2 weeks before she disappeared. The complaint was missing, but Paul had written down one line from a secretary who saw it. She said he wouldn't leave her alone. Megan did not want the story to be true. That was the part people never understood about finding evidence. Truth did not arrive clean, it arrived heavy. If the tape was real, then a man had spent 22 years in prison while the courthouse protected its own. And Megan worked in that courthouse. She knew the judges, the clerks, the lawyers, the portraits on the walls, the plaques, the speeches about justice and public trust. That afternoon, she searched the old digital index for Anna Whitaker's complaint. Nothing. Then she searched for files connected to Judge Kellen before he became a judge. One result appeared. Restricted personnel matter. Filed October 3, 2004. Sealed by court order. Judge Warren Pike. Megan stared at the screen. Pike had not just heard the tape. He had sealed something before Anna vanished. Paul wanted to go to the state attorney general immediately. Megan wanted one more piece, not because she doubted the tape, because she knew what powerful people did when a story had only one fragile object holding it together. They called it a mistake, a misunderstanding, a damaged recording, a clerk's error. So Megan kept digging. In the archive, she found the old visitor logs from the courthouse entrance. Most pages were faded, some were torn, but October 17, 2004, was still readable. Marla Voss had signed in at 6:12 p.m. Judge Pike had signed out at 7:04, and below both names was a third signature, Robert Kellen, 6:49 p.m. The official record said Kellen had never been present for that interview. The log said otherwise. Megan photographed the page. Then she noticed something else. Anna Whitaker had signed in too. 2 weeks earlier, the day her complaint was sealed. The state reopened the case quietly. At least, they tried to. But small towns hear silence better than announcements. By the end of the week, reporters were outside the courthouse. Daniel Reed's name was back on television. Anna Whitaker's photo was on every screen. And Judge Robert Kellen announced through his attorney that he had no memory of any informal interview, any complaint, or any connection to Anna outside ordinary courthouse business. But then Marla Voss was found. She was living 3 states away under her married name. She was older now, careful with strangers. But when investigators played the tape, she began to cry. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, like someone who had been holding her breath for 22 years. She said, "I told them it wasn't Daniel." Then she added, "And after that, they told me what would happen if I said it again." Marla's statement changed the case, but it was the second tape that changed the county. It was found inside Judge Pike's personal files, stored with his estate papers. His grandson turned it over after seeing the news. This tape had a label, Whitaker Complaint, on it. Anna's voice was calm. That made it worse. She was not emotional. She was not trying to ruin anyone. She was simply describing a pattern. Unwanted calls, being followed to her car, notes left where she worked, a conversation in a courthouse office that made her afraid to return alone. She did not name Robert Kellen at first. Judge Pike asked her directly, "Are you speaking about Mr. Kellen?" Anna paused. Then she said, "Yes." The room on the tape went silent, and in that silence, 22 years of Ashford County began to fall apart. Daniel Reed walked out of prison on a gray Thursday morning. There were cameras waiting, lawyers, reporters. People who had once called him guilty now stood behind barricades hoping to see his face. He did not smile. He did not raise his hands. He walked slowly, as if freedom was something he did not fully trust yet. His sister met him first. She had kept his old jacket all those years. She brought it with her. Daniel put it on, and looked smaller than the man in the trial footage. Megan watched from the edge of the crowd. She had never met him before, but he found her anyway. Paul must have told him who she was. Daniel stepped toward her and said only 2 words. "Thank you." Megan wanted to say something meaningful, something that made sense, but all she could say was, "I'm sorry it took so long." Judge Robert Cullen resigned before the formal charges were announced. His attorneys denied everything. They said memory fades. They said old recordings can be misunderstood. They said public pressure had replaced facts, but the evidence did not fade. The visitor logs, the sealed complaint, Marla's original statement, the Pike recordings, the missing disclosure, the trial transcript that no longer matched the truth. The investigation into Anna Whitaker's disappearance continued, but the court had already answered one part of the story. Daniel Reed had been convicted in a trial built on a lie. Ashford County removed Judge Pike's portrait from the main hallway, then quietly returned it months later with a small plaque underneath. It said he preserved evidence when others failed. Megan stopped in front of that plaque once. She was not sure if it was honor or guilt. Maybe it was both. The courthouse archive was never cleared that Monday. After the Reed case reopened, every disposal order was frozen. Boxes were rechecked. Tapes were cataloged. Sealed files were reviewed by people outside the county for the first time in decades. Megan stayed at her job. People asked why. After everything she had found, why keep working in the same building? Her answer was simple: because archives do not protect the truth by themselves. Someone has to open the box. Someone has to question the label. Someone has to press play when a tape says not to. Anna Whitaker's full story was still unfinished. Daniel Reed's life could not be returned to him the way it was taken, but one forgotten tape had done what the courthouse failed to do. It made the record speak. Some files are buried by accident, some are buried on purpose, and some wait in the dark until the right person finally listens. This was Docket Stories, where every case file has a story. Subscribe for the next case.